Hello and welcome to You Don't Know Her, the mindset podcast all about creating the best life for yourself, one by design and not by default. And I'm sorry for the chuckling introduction there, but Adam's hell-bent on making a new face every time he comes on this podcast. And it's a phenomenal face. Look at that. It's really showing off that jawline. So how are you doing, Adam?
I'm very good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really well. Yeah, thanks again. Thanks for
Excellent.
coming on so many times. It's always a pleasure to see you. But
It is. It's a pleasure likewise.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, who wouldn't want to spend time with me? Absolutely.
Exactly.
But right, we're very keen on having you on this one because it's something we've not really spoke. We spoke a lot about
Mm,
music in the past, and we spoke a lot about your profession, Twitch streaming and gaming and things like that, and even talk about Borough recently, our local area, and
mm.
our sporting. I mean, one thing we've not really delved into, I don't think we've looked at Friends in the past, I suppose, which is sitcom, situational comedy, but.
Yeah.
I think hard and hard, out and out comedy. That's something we've bonded over the years. Like really
Mm.
funny shows and comedians and thing. And I think one no more so than another local Middlesbrough link is Bob Mortimer.
Yeah, I think it is. I think we have shared a very similar sort of sense of humor because obviously we've grown up together. We spent a lot of time like with each other because obviously we're good friends as well. So you just do develop similar sort of sense of humor. And Bob Mortimer, I think as soon as everybody in the friendship group discovered Bob Mortimer, it was just constant. There was nothing
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
It was
It's
just Bob.
yeah. Bob is love, Bob is life, I think became the
Mhm.
motto, isn't it? Bob is yeah, he's a he's very well rated by the other comedians on the circuit, isn't it? You see him on
Mhm.
well, specifically I think what got us all into him was Would I Lie to You, wasn't it? The show
Yep.
with David Mitchell, Lee Mack and Rob Brydon, and he's the only guest on there that ever gets that you really have no inclination of whether he's telling the truth or lying because
Mhm.
he believes his own story so much and he portrays it so well. He gets into the characters, and it's Sergeant by the way, and it's
Mhm.
everything like that. So is that what drew him for you? Is that the first time you really thought, okay, I love Bob Mortimer, or was it anything
I
before that?
kind of think it is, it's just having the exposure of him on Would I Lie to You? And then it's every time he comes up with these ludicrous stories, like you say, you don't know if it's true, you don't know if it's false.
Yeah.
And the way that he constructs these
Mm.
stories is just fantastic. And even
Yeah.
if it's not in a sense of like comedy or anything,
Mm.
it's just the way that his mind works to
Yeah.
get things around. Like
Yeah.
the things that are true, they almost sound fake
Yeah.
because you hear him describe stuff and he's like, oh, I've got this PlayStation chair that I'm putting on my kitchen counter so I'm closer to the lights on the ceiling. And you think
Yeah.
nobody's doing this. Come on,
Yeah.
Bob.
Yeah.
Let's be real. At the
Yeah.
end of it, he's like, it's all true. Yeah, why wouldn't I do that? It's like
Yeah.
it's just and it was
Yeah.
just defined in one of the episodes to me as it's just so Bob.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you
That's what
knew
it
Bob,
was.
that's just so Bob, isn't it? It's it's that situation's the first one I always think of as well. I think that is the most Bob Mortimer story, I
Mhm.
think. But you've already like it's already sound ridiculous what you said. He's on a gaming chair on top of his island in his kitchen, so he's underneath the light. But the
We haven't
reason
even
he's doing
discussed
that,
what he's doing with this
he's
gaming chair at
he's
this
doing
point.
it because he's performing his own dentistry.
Because why not?
Because
Because
why wouldn't
why
he?
not? Exactly.
Yeah,
Anyone else says this and you think it's no one's doing this.
yeah,
This is ridiculous. You or I say these things and it's like, no, it's just silly. This is ridiculous.
yeah,
Bob says it, it's absolutely fine because
yeah,
everything he says is just brilliant to me.
mm,
And the stories that he has, it's
yeah.
just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, really. In fact, I will link that episode, that link in the description below for the Bob Mortimer, the Fuji Nine, the
Mhm.
dentistry
Oh
plot.
yeah.
It's really worth your time. It's just laugh out loud funny from start to finish. But that, like you say, staying on Bob Mortimer, one would lie to you. As a stark contrast to that is the other one I really love. So is the story he tells of Chris Rea popping him in the bath with an egg. Do you remember that
Oh
one?
yeah.
Yeah, because that is the complete opposite. And well, yeah, spoiler alert.
Mhm.
That is a lie. That one turns out to be a lie. But the whole thing about him fabricating this story and him believing this, and he talks about how he lies in the bath and he brings the egg close to his chest,
It's just the level of detail that he goes into.
yeah,
You just have to believe it at
you
some
have to
point.
believe it. You
There's no
think,
way you go into that much detail, and it's like
yeah,
it's not true. There's no
yeah,
way.
he's in there, he's in the moment, and David Mitchell's the one who goes after it's revealed that it's a lie, and they've said true. The other team said David
Mhm.
Mitchell's team said true. David goes, of course it's a lie. He's got Chris Rea popping him into the bath with an egg. And it's yeah, it's 100% true. Why
Hmm.
would you say true to that story? It's because he
Exactly.
gets in your mind, isn't it? Bob Mortimer
Hmm.
is a genius at doing that. So do you agree with that?
Yeah, I completely do. And it's just the way that he just describes everything as well. He goes
Mm,
into so much detail
mm,
that you can't think that people would like, not in terms of just make stuff up, but he sort of
mm,
creates this fantasy world in his head
mm.
where it's like anything's gonna happen. Whatever I say is just plausible.
Yeah,
And I think it's a weird sense of confidence that you can just go in and be like, oh, so Chris Rea popped an egg in your bath. Discuss that one.
yeah,
Anyone else would just sort of crumble at just
yeah,
to trying to describe what's going on and explain that.
yeah,
But just having that sort of, that wit, that quick-witted, being able to just think on your feet that quickly, it's
yeah,
something that's just so good. And honestly, it's something that I really what I'd love to be able to do. Like
yeah,
I try and do it in terms of like Twitch and stuff like
yeah.
that. I imagine loads of other people try and do it in terms of comedy, but I don't think anyone just pulls it off the way
No.
that Bob does.
No, I think it is a special talent, but I don't know, I wonder if it could be a talent that's developed over time. I think it's like he's obviously, he's been doing it a long time. He's been on the circuit for a long time, and to me, he just emerged all of a sudden. Like, yeah, he's obviously done the Vic and Bob stuff throughout his
Mhm.
earlier career and things like that, and then yeah, but that's when it really like I thought he's like crafted what's good about him as an act now. That's what he's really good at. He knows what he's good at. He knows and he does it
Mhm.
not just on What I Like to You, but he's got a successful podcast called Atletico Mince as well. That he does all this sort of stuff, and
Mhm.
you can see him in other interviews where he plays characters, and he's always just goes with it, and he's just funny about it, and he's kind of leaned into that. So is that kind of something to? I suppose we spoke about this so many times, but knowing your niche or knowing what you want to do as well, and successfully doing it, is that inspiration that can be drawn for other things as well.
Like I think it definitely is the way that he just confidently goes with the flow on everything
Mm,
as well, like you say.
mm,
Like he has the whole fishing like show as
mm,
well. And
mm.
it's just every time it's like, oh Bob, do you want to do this? Yeah, I'll do this.
Yeah,
He'll just throw himself into any situation. And I think
yeah,
it's such a good skill to genuinely have
yeah,
that
yeah.
like most people would look at it and be like, oh no, I don't want to do that. I'll shy away from this or
Mm.
not a big fan. But Bob will just straight up just be like, yeah, yeah, let's
Yeah,
do it. What's the worst that could happen?
yeah,
What's
yeah,
the worst that could happen? And I think that mentality is like ridiculously
yeah,
strong to have.
yeah, yeah. I do want to talk about another really, a comedy hero of mine is Ricky Gervais as well. I think
Hmm.
he's absolutely brilliant, and I've just watched him on the Gary Neville podcast, the Stick to Football,
Hmm.
the overlap or whatever it is, and he talks on that about he talks briefly about football, but it's mainly about his own career and and
A
everything
good a
about that.
good 2-3 minutes on football and
Yeah,
another 57 on something
yeah.
else.
Exactly right. You've hit the nail on the head. But he does say in it, he says that he didn't become a comedian really until his late 30s. He was a failing or struggling musician, and I actually thought he was a very good musician as well. He's in a band that had a massive hit in the Philippines, actually, like
Hmm.
one song. The band's called Shona Dancing. So yeah, check that one out if you want to check
Hmm.
out Ricky Gervais as a young Morrissey type figure. But he did that. And then he realized in his late 20s, he thought, right, I need to get a proper job now. So
Hmm.
he started working in an office, and that's where he learned about how an office works. And he learned about basically, he said his boss was David Brent or a David Brent
Hmm.
character from The Office. And he said he had the David Brent character for years before The Office. He knew like he started doing bits as David Brent, and he'd just see situations and he'd think, what does David Brent think about this? And then
Hmm.
yeah, and that's kind of what he'd do. So then when The Office became a thing, he said, and he says this on the podcast, he said he always made sure that it was always his own vision. He said he just always wanted to be authentic with whatever he did. So he said he's got no name to him, he's got no recognition on none at all. But he said he was given this awful slot. It was like 9 p.m. on BBC Two or something for this
Hmm.
half an hour episode of his TV show, and he said it was about 140 grand to produce the entire. It was I think the first season, or maybe,
Hmm.
but it was either the pilot or the first season. But he said it was very low money, very low risk for BBC, so they were happy for him to have full creative control over that. And
Hmm.
then when it became the massive success it did, he now has creative control over everything he does. And he said he's gonna keep doing it until he fails, and he said he's never failed so far, really. So,
Hmm.
yeah, is that? Yeah, I suppose is that kind of an inspiration to kind of Ricky Gervais hasn't tried to pander to any audiences there. He's not tried to,
Mm.
he knows, I think he would know what would work well. He's on the comedy, he's done stand-up comedy and he knows kind of what works with an audience, but he's always still just had his own message and he thinks people come to see him. Is that kind of a
Yeah.
message you want to say as well?
Do you know, I think it's something similar to what you touched on earlier. The fact that you said, he was doing comedy and stuff. No, he wasn't. He was doing his music and stuff, and he
Mm,
thought it wasn't really working out at the time.
mm.
Obviously, changed jobs, and then almost just seems like he fell into comedy.
Yeah,
And I think sometimes you just do. You just fall into things, and it's like you don't expect it a lot of the time.
yeah.
Even with me, for example, I don't just want to be, not me, but for
Mm,
example, when I was younger, I was always like, I'm brilliant at video games. I
mm,
want to be a professional video game player.
mm,
I was terrible at video games, but
mm.
I enjoyed them, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
basically it. And then at some point, it just sort of clicked where it's like, oh, because I was always quite reserved in school. I was never like the big outgoing person. I'd never go to like massive parties or anything like that.
Yeah.
Whereas I think I've almost fallen into this space now where you get so passionate about something that you end up
Mm,
just talking and talking and talking and talking
mm,
about it.
mm.
And you just fall into a different category almost, like
Yeah,
into what I am now in terms of Twitch streamer, content creator. And
yeah.
it's something that I wouldn't have ever thought. And I imagine Ricky Gervais as well, when he was sort of growing up, when he was in his band, he wouldn't have thought, oh, I'm going to be a comedian someday.
Mm,
Everyone in the band had just looked and laughed at him, like
yeah,
not in a funny way, in a
yeah,
sort of, not
yeah.
in a,
Feel
oh, you're
sorry
a
for
comedian, good one there, a
him.
comedian. No, you're not. You're definitely not a comedian.
Yeah,
But I think it is, you can just fall into things, and it's
yeah,
almost about finding the right thing
yeah.
and almost just falling yourself into it and just going with
Mm,
the flow, as Bob would, just being like, yeah, let's give this a try, and just giving things a try and not sort
mm.
of shying away.
Yeah, yeah, completely agree. And I think a lot of people, like you say, are kind of focused on their own thing and doing their own thing anyway. So I think a lot of people, when they get presented with an idea of someone like, Ricky Gervais wanting to go off and do all this thing, and he's from a working class background in Reading, he's the kind of first one of his family, I believe, that really broke the mold and kind of, became the superstar. But a similar thing with Peter Kay. Peter Kay's probably the
Hmm.
most successful stand-up comedian in the UK,
Hmm.
in terms of, how fast he can sell out shows and arenas and everything like that, alongside kind of Ricky Gervais, people like that. But he does a bit in one of his in my favorite show of his, the tour that didn't tour,
Hmm.
that one, he said the A does a little bit of acting or whatever when from his time at school, and it's his teacher going, is that what you're going to be, Kay, a comedian? And she's
Hmm.
thinking, yeah, it is. It's what he's become, like a very successful comedian, but
Hmm.
you don't see it at the time, do you?
Well, no, again with Peter Kay, like I'm sure he was very serious actor
Mm,
when he was like growing up and going through his acting school and
mm,
stuff. He was always doing more serious stuff, and it
mm,
wasn't until it was I think he did like a module just in comedy or something.
mm.
I don't know if I'm making this up or something, but
Okay, I'm
I
not
feel
sure.
like I'm hearing it from somewhere.
Mm,
And he did
yeah,
it like a comedy module and just nailed it. And everyone said, "Oh, you're brilliant at it. You should give it a
yeah,
go."
yeah,
And again, it's just trying something new, seeing what sticks, and seeing if you enjoy it.
yeah.
And for Peter Kay, it's worked out wonders again.
Yeah, yeah, same as Ricky Gervais, same as Bob Mortimer, leaned into kind of what he's good at. And what it is some people criticize it's a lot of nostalgia comedy, isn't it? It's a lot of observational comedy of kind of things. But I think he does it better than anyone. I think he just puts such an interesting, funny spin on it and just sees the world in a way that others don't. And kind of, he does it. I'm in stitches at this bit that I was watching recently of just him talking about being at a wedding, like, and kind of he does. I'm sure it's about 20 minutes just on like this one wedding he's at, and he's like, yeah, and it's just the same sort of thing of yeah, and it's like, yeah, there's like a wedding DJ who's like, he's like, they're all the same, aren't they? These wedding days, it's they all want to have their own spin on it. They all want to interject. It's what am I? I'm too sexy for my shirts. I say again, too sexy for my shirt. It's like, what am I, lady? It's all that sort of stuff, and like, yeah, but
Hmm.
it's so true. Like, yeah, there's a lot of wedding DJs that are like that, and like, yeah, it's just, yeah, it's funny. It's very funny, but again, that's something that Bob Mortimer does. Is I'd really recommend listening to his podcast, the Atletico Mints. But he
Hmm.
does something, one of his segments on there, because it's like the same segments every week. But once he gets going, he starts a segment where he does observational comedy, but around the idea of having a brass hand, like if your hand was made of brass. So everything. I thought this entire bit is, and this is his character, and he goes, do you remember? Do you remember being on a train when you've got your train ticket and you're about to give it to the conductor and it gets stuck on your brass hand? And like that's all it's sort of like that's his joke. And then the other guy who's right on the same wavelength with him, the other host
Mhm.
called Andy, goes, "Yeah, I'm laughing because I do remember because that happened to me the other week." And you're like that sort of thing. And they both just play off each other so well.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just brilliant. Just coming up with that random stuff like that and just going with it. And I think everyone just having people on the same wavelength around you.
Mm.
It's just so nice to have because, Bob could walk into a room and full of people who just completely don't get it.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
example, it's the same with any comedian, isn't it? Or any kind of person. You can walk into a room full of people
Mm.
and they just might not get it.
Yeah.
Whereas having that core of people around you to just completely understand what you're talking about and what you're
Yeah.
saying, it's just fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
To have.
Yeah. I think that's the thing. It's understanding. Bob Mortimer, Ricky Gervais, Peter Kay, they're all at a point now where they know whatever the show they do, they're the main thing, and the
hmm
audience are there to see them. They're on side with them already. So whatever they do, they're gonna, they've won the crowd over. They don't have to do anything to win the crowd. Whereas a lot of
hmm
comedians starting out, they have to really work hard to kind of, yeah, make sure it. Not that the superstars don't work hard,
hmm
they do, they clearly do, but
Yeah.
to kind of, I was listening to Jason Manford saying one of his first big breaks was I think he was 17 and he was on the bill of this comedy club in might be Manchester or something like that. And he said, no pressure, but the compare of the night was Peter Kay. Peter Kay was the
hmm
MC, and hosting it. And so, wow. But he said he was backstage and he could only hear the murmurs of Peter Kay's voice and then the laughter of the crowd. That's kind of all he could hear. So he didn't really know what was going on. And he said he's got 7 minutes of material that he's got as a
hmm
17-year-old. He said that's all you ever needed on the circuit when you start out, 7 minutes, and then you could get off the stage. And he said he had 7 minutes. He was right at the start of the bill, and then they all go up in time, and they all got more time. And then he said this woman comes in and says, just so everyone knows, everyone's getting 10 minutes now. Everyone gets 10 minutes. And
hmm
he said that was terrifying to him because he didn't have 10 minutes. He had seven
hmm
minutes. So he said he's got to come up with 3 minutes. So he phoned his dad and said, Dad, just give me some jokes that I can just do for 3 minutes and then I can get
hmm
into my act. And his dad gives him some jokes and he's writing them down. And he's like, okay, brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, thank you so much. And he comes out and he says, he starts with the best one, which is this joke about I can't remember what it was actually, but he starts out with this joke and he's into the joke, and he said he was laughing as his dad told him this, and his dad said, "This is the banker, this is the surefire one,
Yeah.
this is the guaranteed laugh." Like he said, "I've told this so many times in the pub, and it always gets a laugh." And he's like, "Okay,"
hmm
so he did it, and it just fell flat. The audience didn't like it at all. They just didn't. And then because of that, he said he lost them, and then he couldn't. He said they didn't laugh for the entire 10 minutes, and he said he said he
hmm
came off the stage and thought that's just the worst set I've ever had. I'm gonna probably like quit comedy. And then Peter Kay came over to him and said, "What the hell was all that about, son?" And he goes, "I don't know. I told this joke and they didn't get it." And and he said, "What? It's a funny joke." And Peter Kay went, "I know it's a funny joke. That's why I told it." And so yeah, Peter Kay had already told the joke. It's Peter Kay's joke. So that's why the
That's
crowd
where the
felt
dad's got it from, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, because he phoned his dad, and his dad went, I thought it was Peter Kay. I thought that's where I heard it from. But yeah, so that's it. Like, yeah, don't beat yourself up if you have these moments,
Mhm.
because Jason Manford is one of the most successful comedians in the UK now himself. And he's
Mhm.
he's someone that sells out shows no problem himself. So
Yeah, I,
it's
I
about
think it's the same with
working.
everyone, though. You only see the big successes.
Yeah.
With everyone we mentioned before, every single one of them, they'll have had times where they'll have had a show and it'll be terrible.
Oh,
It'll be
absolutely.
awful. They'll have had like three people turn up.
Yeah.
Nobody will have laughed. People will have left halfway through.
Mm.
Everyone has that. It's like you don't see the work that goes in. You only see the people right at the top. And it goes
Yeah.
to the same for anyone, I think. It's
Yeah.
just putting that effort in. And putting
Yeah.
that like not the grind to get it done because sometimes it's not how it works.
Mm.
But if you're just putting that effort in, you don't see a lot of the behind the scenes.
Mm.
And it
Yeah.
is the same with a lot of things. People, it's so easy to criticize and say, "Oh, you could do this, you could do that," but actually just putting the effort in is already a massive step. Like
Yeah.
even with Jason Manford there, if you said to me, Adam, go on stage for 10 minutes and try and get people to laugh.
Mm.
Maybe like 15 seconds,
Mm.
I'd be confident. And then, yeah, it'd probably drop after that 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's obviously even with me having like, experience talking to Twitch and stuff and being, content creator and stuff. But it's a completely different kettle of fish, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like some people can, some people just can't do it. And
No.
I don't think I'd be one of those people who can do it.
No.
But with
Absolutely.
practice, you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just it's believing in yourself, getting to the point, I think, of going, and you said it yourself, you kind of started Twitch with let's just do this, let's just, and not a real plan, and that's one of my favorite quotes from the In-Betweeners, actually, is when Jay goes, "You've got to have a plan." Like,
Mhm.
the other side about his plan that they've got. He goes, "You've not got a plan." Whoa, you've got to have a
Mhm.
plan. And I think that's the thing. It's like you now know, looking back at it, but that helped you get to the
Mhm.
point you're at now where you go, right, I know what I'm about. I know what the people like,
Mhm.
it's just me being me, but I know more about that now.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. You go on at first, and it is almost like, do I be myself? Do I try and do this? Do I try and copy what other people are doing? And in the end, it was just being myself was basically obviously the way to go.
Yeah,
Definitely the way to go. But
yeah,
especially when you get people coming in, and like a couple of streams recently, people come in and just say, you know what, that is such a good stream. I'm gonna have to drop a follow. And people
yeah,
don't have to say that. Like they could
yeah,
just drop the follow and just,
yeah,
be silent the whole time, and it's
yeah,
great. I'm still grateful for people turning up. But
yeah.
when you actively get people like typing in the chat and saying in the
Mm,
streams and saying, look, I've really enjoyed the stream,
yeah.
I'm gonna have to follow. It's like they
Yeah,
don't have any obligation to say that.
100% agree. I think a lot of people get scared of the idea of giving a thanks sometimes because they think, oh, they've heard it all before. But actually,
Hmm.
a lot of people think that way, and a lot of people don't give thanks. So a lot of people kind of, I've noticed. Obviously, I'm very, very small podcast at the moment, but
Hmm.
I do
So I say you're
notice.
taller than me, aren't you?
But I do notice that the majority of people reaching out is when they've kind of got issues with anything that's been raised on any of the episodes or
Hmm.
any trouble or things that. And I always appreciate it, I always learn from it, but sometimes it would be nice to have oh, that was a really nice episode, or something like that, which I'm sure they're thinking,
Hmm.
but they maybe don't like articulate as well. So yeah, I'll be honest with you, we've actually run over time already, Adam.
Oh
So,
God.
but I do appreciate your time coming on. So yeah,
Mhm.
final question as always, where do the people find you if they want to see more of
They
you?
can find me on twitch.tv// IdleCrisp. Don't know when. The days are changing at the moment. We're making big strides, but we'll get consistent at some point.
Amazing, perfect. I'll drop that in the link as always. But thank you very much for your time, Adam, and we'll catch up next time.
Excellent. It's been brilliant. Thanks for having
Cheers.
me.
Thank you. Bye.